Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Yesterday I wrote to Charles Hoskinson, founder of Cardano, on the topic of the whole grand conspiracy firestorm that lit up initially in October of last year. It's been over a freaking year now. And recently the topic came back up. I've talked about it in videos the last couple days here. And yesterday I wrote to Charles Hoskinson, and he actually replied to me. He wrote back to me. And I wrote back to him. I don't know if he's seen it yet, but I wrote back to him because he continues to mislead anybody that will read anything that he writes. And I think that, Charles is counting on most of his followers not having the time, energy, or interest in following the timeline of events and facts surrounding what is actually going on with this. So I will spoon feed the facts to any human that will listen. Anyone that's willing to listen. Happily do it. Because Charles Hoskinson is deliberately misleading people. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to avoid the embarrassment of admitting he was wrong about something and he needs to grow up. Because what he did was just rip the entire XRP community, make us out to be a bunch of lunatics and conspiracy theorists, and it's completely unjustified. And what makes it all the more rich is that what he said made us conspiracy theorists, and what made it, because you remember the term grand conspiracy. That's what he said. We were creating this grand conspiracy. The ideas underlying that, he actually came to adopt himself. I have shown the proof over the last of all of this, so I don't want to go through, I've gone through the time. I'm not going to do that in this video. I'm going to try and keep this pretty much just to what I wrote to Charles Hoskinson, and I'll be brief on that because I actually shared some of it yesterday, but I want to spend a lot of time on his response to me and my response to him and some other stuff on this topic. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I'm not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so this all started, of course, as you guys know, with comments from Charles Hoskinson when he was on the Thinking Crypto YouTube channel. And I don't need to go through all the quotes and stuff. Like I said, I've already done that over the last couple days here. But there was a post from John Deaton. So this is right after this happened, October 7th of last year, 2022. John Deaton wrote, "I'd like to know if Charles Hoskinson is including me as someone peddling a conspiracy theory, because all I have done is provide actual facts for every single comment that I have made. I tweeted this 1 year ago, and everything I've said has been proven." And then he shared a thread from his from October 10th of 2021. Then there was also this post from Charles Hoskinson, who wrote, in response to his comments about the grand conspiracy here, he wrote, "Conspiracy or not, my point is that it doesn't matter. I explained how we got here and how we need to get out. The entire XRP affair shouldn't have happened. It's bad for the industry, and regulation through enforcement doesn't do any good for anyone." So he says it doesn't matter? And the original post, it's from an account that's now been suspended, but I do remember that from back in the day. He was saying it doesn't matter. What happens doesn't matter. And so Crypto Eddie, my fellow expert YouTuber, responded and said, "It does matter. Very much. Your very point is appalling. Wow, I'm quite shocked. I had you for a different person." So when they come after Cardano and ADA, backed by corruption, criminal behavior, and lies, I'll remember it doesn't matter. That's right, it doesn't matter that they came after XRP, right? It doesn't even matter. And of course now, since time has passed, we know that they have come after Cardano. Not that they've actually sued Charles Hoskinson or anyone associated with in a developer way or anything like that, but the SEC has claimed that Cardano itself is a security in separate lawsuits, including the Coinbase one. I believe in the Coinbase one, but either way, for sure, the SEC has claimed that Cardano itself is a security. And so there were comments from him yesterday, and this is what set this off. 2 days ago, actually, Charles Hoskinson wrote to an XRP community member in all caps here, and I highlighted this part yesterday. I'll be brief here. "The entire grand conspiracy statement is about Joe bribing the SEC to go after Ripple, not the free pass. Not the free pass, not the free pass. 2 effing years we've been talking past each other. It's beyond sanity." And so that's him claiming that his initial comment about XRP community members engaging in a grand conspiracy, he's saying that it is about Joe Lubin bribing the SEC to go after Ripple. That's what he's saying. And I know that that's not true. And so I went to great lengths to bring up my previous thread from last year, and then I wrote a thread yesterday and said, hey, sorry, this is not true. And I went through all the reasons why. And so I don't want to go through all of that again because I just did it literally yesterday. I'm just setting this up with the minimal amount of setting I can do. And then there was this article from the Crypto Basic, and it covered this all, by the way, including my actual comments. They had this as a headline: Cardano founder, I could have been more precise with my grand conspiracy statement to XRP holders. And so they've got posts from me in here, and him responding. And so here's what Charles Hoskinson wrote to me. I could have been more precise with my words during a throwaway interview, but let's be very clear since we are being intellectually honest. A lot of XRP people believe that Joe bribed the SEC to go after XRP to take them out so Ethereum could rise. This has always been my point. Whoa, I got pause right there. And I'm going to cover this thoroughly in my response. That has not always been his point. That's my point. My point is that it has not always been his point. His initial comment was about corruption between the SEC and folks at Ethereum. That was he called that a conspiracy, even though there's well-documented facts surrounding that. He called that a conspiracy, not stuff about Joe Lubin. But here, he's saying something different. He says again, let me read it again, a lot of XRP people believe that Joe bribed the SEC to go after XRP to take them out so Ethereum could rise. This has always been my point. False. It has not always been your point. It was not your initial point. And then, when you were later on, when you were talking about what set this off, you said that was what you were asked about in the first place. You said that was it, but that was false. And then Charles Hoskinson, in continuing his comment to me, wrote, the fact that they will not let grand conspiracy go is because they conflate the two, not ambiguity on my part. At this stage, if anyone isn't clear, then they are either purposefully staying naive or stupid. There is no middle ground here. So look, I'm telling you guys, like Charles, he didn't misspeak. He lied about his initial comment to make his grand conspiracy claim easier to justify. That's what he did. And so here he's saying it's all very clear. And I'm telling you, man, he'll flip on a dime. I'm going to show you. It's actually ridiculous what he said. I'm going to show you another one. Let me share with you first my response to all of this, which I've got. I thought I had pulled up here. Yeah, here it is. All right, so here's what I wrote to him. It kind of grinds my gears a bit, folks. You're directing attention away from the core truth of the matter by bringing up Joe Lubin. Here's what started it all. You said people in the XRP community are trying to invent a, quote, grand conspiracy, end quote, that there was, quote, blatant corruption between the insiders at the SEC and Ethereum, end quote. Your comment did not mention Joe Lubin, nor any mention of a conspiracy against any parties to attack XRP and or Ripple. It was this initial comment that the XRP community took issue with, because there very clearly was corruption between people working on Ethereum and the SEC. It's well documented. And I'll pause here to note, as I mentioned at the outset of the video, even 2 years ago, John Deaton had a list of facts showing corruption. You know, and it's not some sort of, like, these are facts, and we know them in the XRP community, right? There certainly was corruption between Ethereum folks and the SEC, well documented. And then I said, the XRP community was not upset about anything having to do with Joe Lubin or an attack against XRP or Ripple, because that was not even being discussed. You didn't say anything about that in your initial comment, which started this whole firestorm. This is why people in the XRP community feel upset and frustrated. You then presented false facts, in quotes, changing the narrative into having something to do with Joe Lubin and an attack on XRP/Ripple. People were upset with you way before you falsely stated that your initial comment had something to do with Joe Lubin coordinating an attack against XRP/Ripple. To bring up Joe Lubin as though that is what set off this whole controversy is disingenuous and factually incorrect. That is entirely different subject matter and has nothing to do with the origin of this controversy. What I'm saying here is factually accurate, and I went to great lengths to prove in my previous threads on the topic that what I'm saying is true. Now, I'll pause and note or just comment, just in case anybody is unaware. A year ago, I literally went through every comment in video where this was discussed and everything in writing. And as far as the videos are concerned, I transcribed everything relevant to the topic, literally everything, laid it out chronologically because he claimed that he was being taken out of context and misrepresented, and I knew that was BS. He was not being misrepresented. He was not being taken out of context. His problem is that people were responding in context, and what he said was so bogus and ridiculous that it harmed his persona. That's the truth. And so I went through and laid this all out, and it took me a ton of time to transcribe this, put up the threads here, but I knew that the average person, like the casual observer, wasn't going to necessarily have the time or energy or interest to actually piece this all together. And so he's got like almost 1 million people following him, and they're all seeing stuff about the crazy XRP people. I don't like that. I'm in the community. I don't like that. And he's saying stuff that is blatantly false. And so I took the time to map it out and say, here's why you're wrong. Here's why what you're saying is not true. Here are the facts. You can't dispute it because they're facts. Period. That's what I did. I'm only laying out facts. And then I wrote, whether or not some people in the XRP community think Joe Lubin coordinated with anyone or any entity to attack Ripple or XRP is wholly irrelevant. That has nothing to do with why the XRP community became upset with you. The reason people became upset is because you were painting the community as conspiracy theorists. Everyone knows that the term grand conspiracy was used as a pejorative against people in the XRP community. What further upset the community is that you said this, despite the fact that there is actual evidence of corruption between the SEC and Ethereum. Fast forward, this is where it gets rich, check this out. Fast forward to October 2023. You said, and I quote, "Did the Ethereum founders use connections and maybe even money to convince the SEC? Yes, probably, but this is not corruption, just favoritism," end quote. This means that you agree with XRP community members who assert that there was corruption between Ethereum and the SEC. You call it favoritism instead of corruption, which softens the blow, but you believe the same underlying ideas. This means that the Charles Hoskinson of October 2022 would have said that the Charles Hoskinson of October 2023 was trying to invent this grand conspiracy. Because that's his quote. That's why I use that, by the way. And then I wrote, the XRP community was right to push back against your claims of inventing a grand conspiracy last year, and I'm glad to see that you've come around and now agree with the underlying ideas, regardless of how you choose to label those ideas. So that's the truth. I've only laid out facts in what I've written here. That's it. And he keeps misleading people and lying. So check this out. After he responded to me, and before I wrote back, but after he responded to me with what I already shared in this video, he had a separate post. Here, I'll even show you the timestamp so you guys can see. When he wrote to me, it was 10:29 p.m. Central Time last night. And then separately, at 11:23 p.m. Central Time last night, the 29th, Charles Hoskinson had a comment here, and it was to somebody named Cameron. Now, this XRP community member named Cameron wrote the following. Charles, with all due respect, No one claims the SEC was bribed to go after XRP. You keep on pointing to an argument that you're making up. However, they were bribed to give ETH a free pass, which could lead them of their own volition to go after competitors. That is what we see. And so Cameron's hitting the nail on the head. I mean, I'm sure you could find some people in the community that do believe that this was all done to harm Ripple and XRP. I don't know that that would be a majority opinion, but that also isn't what the initial comment that set it off anyway. But yeah, Cameron's correct in what he stated there. But here's how Charles Hoskinson responded. He said, "My grand conspiracy statement has nothing to do with Joe bribing to give Ethereum a free pass. So why does the XRP community continue to harass me as if I said that?" I'm sorry, what, Charles Hoskinson? You said the grand conspiracy statement has nothing to do with Joe bribing to give Ethereum a free pass? Interesting then. Why is it that after you made the first statement, because it's true, like in the initial statement, as I pointed out, in the initial statement, it was about the SEC and ETH. Why is it then that after the fact, and I went through great detail in my thread to highlight that you said later on that you were asked about Joe Lubin attacking Ripple and XRP. And I bet I could probably even quickly pull up the damn quote right here, because this is my main thread here. Yeah, here we go. Here's what he said right here, full on your screen, full screen. So this is after the Firestorm had started, X number of days later, whatever it was. Charles said this separately on a video. "I was on an interview called Thinking Crypto at my ranch and casually asked a question about what I thought about a belief that the entirety of the Securities and Exchange Commission is engaged in a financial conspiracy with Joe Lubin and the Ethereum group to solely single out and go after Ripple." Right. So you're lying there. That is incorrect. You're the one that brought up Joe Lubin and this idea of a conspiracy going after Ripple. That's not us. You did that. You did that, Charles. You did that. This is such BS. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable what this guy is doing. And all to avoid admitting that he was wrong and made a mistake. That's all he has to do. Like, people make mistakes all the time. I mess up. You know what the right thing to do is? Be like, "Oh yeah, I was wrong there. Sorry, I'll try and do better in the future." Okay. Because people respect that. Nobody expects everybody to be perfect all the damn time. That's unattainable and stupid. But if people see that you can't admit when you're wrong, they're going to trust you less. This is harmful to your persona. This is harmful to your reputation, Charles Hoskinson. You should have just admitted that you said something that was wrong. You should have just done it at the time. And now you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth here. And that's why you keep doing this in defending. It's because you're hoping that the casual observer won't have the time and energy to dig in, and they'll still just trust you, and your reputation won't be harmed if you just fight enough. But there are a lot of people like me and everybody listening to this video, and not just this, and it goes way beyond this. We've talked about this broadly in the community. All of us know that you are a liar. You have harmed your reputation. You absolutely have harmed your reputation. You're not trustworthy to people, because the people that have seen that you're a liar. You just won't admit that you were wrong. And I gave you the benefit of the doubt, Charles. From the beginning, I was like, "Well, guys, before we jump down his throat, let's give him a chance to see if there's any sort of chance that he misspoke, or maybe he didn't know about some of these facts." I said, "Let's give him a shot." I gave him quite a bit of time, and then it was very clear that even when the facts were thrown in his face, he didn't care. He didn't want to admit he was wrong because he just couldn't swallow his pride. And he's still doing it over a year later. He's still doing it. I mean, look at the initial, there was the post where he was screaming, that which is what I replied yesterday. He wrote here, "The entire grand conspiracy statement is about Joe bribing the SEC to go after Ripple, not the free pass." So that's him 2 days ago, on November 20th. He's saying that his grand conspiracy statement is about Joe bribing the SEC to go after Ripple. Fast forward to last night, and he said it's not. He says here, "My grand conspiracy statement has nothing to do with Joe bribing to give Ethereum a free pass." What in the ever-loving hell is that? Are these different humans? Again, from the 28th. "The entire grand conspiracy statement is about Joe bribing the SEC to go after Ripple, not the free pass." Last night, "My grand conspiracy statement has nothing to do with Joe bribing to give Ethereum a free pass." These are completely opposite statements from one Charles Hoskinson, presumably there's just one of them, right? Like, or maybe there are two. What the hell do I know at this point? And they just disagree with each other, and they both run the same X account. Maybe that's what's happening here. This is ridiculous. Hard to believe, folks. Did you see? Like, I showed you on the screen here. He's disagreeing with himself in real time. Like, this is crazy, man. This is why it burns my biscuits, son. So let me share with you a few of the responses to what Charles wrote to me from the XRP community member. Crypto is the Key wrote, "This is the behavior of a narcissist who is entangled in something he's terrified of if it comes to light." Here's a post from Whit Whitaker, wrote to Charles Hoskinson in his response to me. Whit Whitaker said, "Glad to see that's how you feel about your community, that the interview was a throwaway." Yeah, and that's another thing that jumped out at me that I hadn't mentioned to this point. And I was thinking about including it in my own comment, but I felt like it would have gone slightly in a different direction. I was really trying to stay on point in my post. But if you look at what Charles wrote here, he says, "I could have been more precise with my words during a throwaway interview." Folks, he's talking about Tony Edward on the Thinking Crypto YouTube channel, which is a very popular YouTube channel. He's saying that his interview with Thinking Crypto, Tony Edward, that was a throwaway interview. How insulting is that? If I'm Tony Edward, I'm kind of pissed about that. That's pretty rude. Who is this guy? My God. Here was Crypto Mark. He shared with this meme of a dog shaking its head going, "Really?" And he wrote, "I could have been more precise with my words," quote. Intellectually honest, quote. Really? Yeah. Apparently, that's what he's really saying. Ox Die wrote, "You are so immature." Pretty spot on. Like, it's short, but, brevity is the soul of wit. You know who said that? That's Billy Shakespeare. Billy Shakespeare said that. Here's a post from Michelle Nightingale, and this is, again, all of these posts that I'm sharing with you, including the one from Michelle Nightingale, they're all writing to Charles Hoskinson, who had just written to me, still trying to deny facts, still trying to get out of the wrongness that he created. Michelle Nightingale said, "No, Charles Hoskinson, you're entitled to your own opinions, but not your own facts. Maybe some XRP holders have said Joe Lubin bribed the SEC to sue Ripple. If so, I personally haven't seen it. And it's certainly not the majority. Maybe that's what you meant, but you didn't actually say. However, that extra detail was not at all a part of the original dialogue, so you can't poo-poo the XRP community for it after the fact." And folks, she is so spot on here. He's like gaslighting us here because, again, the whole argument, the massive fault where Charles Hoskinson was so pissed at the XRP community, it was not about Joe Lubin. It was not about Joe Lubin or anybody else attacking Ripple or XRP. It was about Ethereum coordinating with the SEC and engaging in corruption. That was it. And there were so many posts, and I covered it at the time. It's in my old videos from over a year ago. I was showing posts from community members calling out Charles Hoskinson saying, "No, here's the proof. This is real. This is a real thing." And then he shifted gears. He didn't want to admit he's wrong. That's when he threw Joe Lubin in. Then he said, "Well, no, it's the Joe Lubin thing. That's wacky. That's a grand conspiracy. I stand by my statement." But then he flipped back and he says, "Now, I never said anything about Joe Lubin in my original comment." He just goes back and forth. To whoever he needs, depending on who he needs to try and trick or convince in the moment, he just goes back and forth for multiple positions. That's what he's doing here. And then Michelle Nightingale said, "Moon Lambo is right. Your grand conspiracy comments were specifically related to the XRP community, pointing out the blatant corruption between the SEC and Ethereum. Facts, not opinions, were provided. Yet you still called us conspiracy theorists. So we have a right to be upset. Anyone would be upset at being painted as liars/crazies when decrying an injustice." And so I just hit hard on that, and I'm going to repost that right now as I'm recording this video, because that is spot on. That is fantastic. And Charles Hoskinson, I get it. You're successful in tricking some people, but you would have been better off, instead of trying to trick anybody, admitting that you were wrong, and then a ton more people would respect you and trust you today. Instead, since you have intentionally, deliberately misled and lied, you have people like me who do not trust you anymore. That's the reality of it. Like, I just showed it. You got multiple positions, like, practically in real time. It's like you might as well argue with yourself. Whatever benefits you think in the moment, that's what you say. And it's at the expense of the XRP community. So no. And you don't care. You've got so much pride, so much ego, that you'd rather alienate people who trusted you previously than admit you were wrong. Even though it actually harms you. It actually does, because you have way fewer people that respect and trust you. Way fewer. I'm assuming to the tune of at least tens of thousands of people. But you gotta save face because you can't admit it. And you are tricking a lot of people who just don't know, they don't have the time or energy or whatever to look into this. And that's why I've been trying to spoon feed people the facts. Because you're wrong and you're making crap up. And it really steams my vegetables. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.